Okay, so today's Teen Titans review of the episode Overdrive is going to be a relatively short one. I'm going to make sure of that. I don't want to start ranting about this episode, or else the episode will just go on way too long, and I need to keep it short enough that I have time to edit it down. Also, and I know this is going to surprise a lot of you guys, I don't like to be negative about things that I enjoy. Like, I will point out when something doesn't live up to its potential and or falls short of the quality that it's already displayed earlier in its existence. But I don't relish saying negative things about things I really like. And I have some negative things to say about this Teen Titans episode. I didn't like this one at all. So quickly, in summation, in this episode, Cyborg, who has never been shown to follow a rigid schedule in the first place, is bummed out because he's not able to do everything on his very rigid schedule that he put together himself. These are things that he wants to do. Like, specifically, that's worth keeping in mind. But then he sees an ad for a new Star Labs microchip, the Maximum 7, which he does a diagnostic on and determines that it would be compatible with his systems, so he orders it and installs it, and now suddenly he's just way more powerful in every regard. He's able to complete tasks faster and therefore get more stuff done during the day, even though the tasks should still take the same amount of time to complete. Like, there are some that would have variable timescales. Playing video games, for example, or playing chess with Raven, for example, those are things you could get done faster, technically, but everything else that we see him do, like taking classes on Starfire's native language and stuff, those are things that would have set lengths of time allotted to them, if that makes sense. I'm sure you guys get what I'm saying. A game of basketball, for example, unless you're just playing first to a certain number of points, takes a certain amount of time. A language class, a foreign language class, takes a certain amount of time. Umpiring a game of Little League Baseball takes a certain amount of time, regardless of how powerful a microchip you have in your head. And then I also question how it's possible for the microchip to do everything that we saw it do. How does it make him stronger and faster and smarter? I could see it making him smarter. It's a chip that goes into the cybernetic part of his brain, but how does it make him faster and stronger? It's not like it's an upgrade to his arms and legs. Like, there's some stuff later in the episode that implies that it works primarily by allowing him to more efficiently allocate energy to tasks, and also can allow him to completely redivert energy from one task to another. Maybe that explains it, but I don't even think that would explain it, because we know he has built-in limits. And yes, he has overcome those limits before through something as completely metaphysical as force of will, but he would still have to upgrade himself, like upgrade his mechanical components to remove those limiters in order to permanently remove those limiters. So already I have a problem with the premise of this episode. It's a nitpicky problem. It's one that I could overlook if the rest of the episode weren't genuinely bad. Now, to its credit, when the new Max 7 Cyborg solos Adonis, even though he has a more advanced tech suit than he did the last time he fought the Titans, no one says that it's a bad thing that he effectively did every job of everyone on the team during the fight. It's just framed like it is, which is absolutely asinine. It's not like these guys are a sports team where each of them is supposed to fill a specific role. Yes, it's good that they're a team with varied abilities, because they can fill different roles in combat in order to secure an advantage over their enemies, but if one of them can defeat an enemy on their own, that's a good thing, because it leaves the others open to go and save more people. There's also a montage in the middle of the episode where Cyborg is getting more stuff done, even though, again, it shouldn't have been possible in some of the situations for that to actually work out. But that doesn't really matter. He gets more stuff done. He manages to complete more things on his to-do list thanks to the Max 7. And his friends don't react negatively to the fact that he's now suddenly smarter. He's able to beat Raven at chess, which is something that he could never do before. He's able to beat Robin at basketball, which is something he was never able to do before. and they don't get on his case about it. They're not jealous of him or anything. It's not treated as a bad thing, but the fact that it's all piled together into a montage makes it clear that we're supposed to look at this as if Cyborg is taking on too much. Except that he's literally not. He has certain levels of capability, things that he is physically capable of doing up to a certain point, because again, his technology has limits. And as long as he's not bypassing those limits in some harmful way, he is quite literally not doing too much. He doesn't start to take on too much until they run into Billy Numerous, who is one of those characters who I wish I could say I don't know their name because I don't care about them enough to know their name. I don't know why this particular character's name stuck with me, because I don't like this character at all. I, in fact, quite hate him a lot. He's a hillbilly stereotype who has the nonsensical ability to duplicate himself pretty much endlessly, even though the energy to do that would have to come from somewhere. Is just really stupid. And his fighting style is to just overwhelm people. And like, that kind of character can be fun, I think. A duplicator who uses their duplicates to straight up overwhelm people because there's nothing really remarkable about them otherwise, that's kind of cool. But Billy is just so freaking annoying about it the entire freaking time. And I also don't buy that him duplicating a bunch of times and piling on top of Cyborg would actually incapacitate him, like we see in one scene in this episode. Like, there's no way that that pile of people was heavier than the giant mechanical weights that Cyborg works out with. It's just not possible. And even then, this is a Cyborg who has upgraded himself and also has been able to push past his literal physical limits before. That's a thing he can do when he needs to. And yet, he, just like the rest of the team, isn't able to overcome Billy. So he decides he's going to go after Billy, even though all of them are too tired to go after Billy. And Robin says that Cyborg shouldn't overdo it, which is just... coming from Robin, that's hilarious. Robin advising somebody not to obsess over catching a bad guy is just... it's adorable. But that's beside the point. Cyborg is so obsessed with catching Billy that he starts to allocate power from his biological functions, like sleep and hunger and emotions, which he shouldn't be physically capable of doing, even with the Max 7. It's not as if his robotic parts are powering those functions. It's not as if they're simulations of his old biological functions that he used to have and he can just turn them off. They're actual biological needs of his biological components. It's absolutely insane to think that he could just shut them off, and that would give him enough energy to do more stuff. It's asinine. But it happens, and they use that as a metaphor for him taking on too much, finally, which I guess installing the Max 7 was like the gateway to him doing that or something, which I don't really understand. I don't understand how the Max 7 is responsible for this. They treat the Max 7 like it's responsible for this, even though it was Cyborg's bad decision that caused him to eventually overdo it to the point that he overloads his systems and almost dies. It's at this point that they take the Max 7 out of his head without his permission, which I would argue that they shouldn't have had the right to do, even if he was in bad shape. But again, that's beside the point, because I guess removing it undoes that ability of Cyborg to reallocate his energy like that and puts everything back to normal, at which point he could just reinstall it and then not do that stupid thing again, right? But he doesn't. They treat it like him having the Max 7 in his head is just inherently a bad thing from this point forward. And then they try to make the message of the episode that you shouldn't take on more than you can handle by having the Titans defeat Billy by having him make so many duplicates that it overloads his ability and causes him to revert back to one person, which, one, they had no evidence would actually happen, and two, had evidence wouldn't happen, since making duplicates is the only thing he does, and it's his entire fighting style. But it does seem to tie back into what they're trying to make the message of this episode. Billy overdoes it, overworks himself, and that leads to his demise, whereas the heroes did the bare minimum while still stressing him out to the point that he did that. And I hated this episode a lot. And I said everything that I feel like I need to say to explain why. Cyborg didn't take on more than he could handle until the very end, and he only did so due to misguided human error, and yet again, they try to blame it on the Max 7 chip, when not only did Cyborg flat out say that he did a diagnostic on the chip and prove definitively that it's compatible with him, but also we saw him make the explicit choice to reallocate power from his biological functions. Him not doing that again should be as simple as him choosing not to do that again. And even if he feels like he would be tempted to do it again, couldn't he just write a subroutine into his robot brain that locks him out from doing that? It really comes across like the episode is trying to tell us that you shouldn't take risks because you never know what's going to be too much for you. And on one hand, I could see that being a worthwhile message in the right context, but this is definitely not it, first of all. And second of all, these characters are superheroes. Taking risks for them is different than taking risks for a regular person. They take risks every day to save people. That's literally their job. It's like they're emergency responders, to use a real-life example. If Cyborg doesn't put this chip back in his head after proving definitively that it works so well, just because it would be a risk for him to do otherwise, then he's bad at his job. And I think that makes him a bad person. I hated this episode a lot. Like, a lot. Neither of the villains in this one were really fun at all. And there's an aspect to the way they beat Billy that I didn't even bother mentioning, because that's literally how much it factored into the climax of the episode. Watch the episode, and you'll see what I mean. It was absolutely stupid and didn't need to be there. I just don't know what else to say. This was a bad episode of Teen Titans. It mixed its metaphors a lot, had a lot of unfortunate implications, and I genuinely hope that I never see it again. As per usual, though, what did you guys think of the episode Overdrive? If you have seen it, let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord, link in the description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.